Hi there and welcome back to St Albans and welcome to February. It is now February by the time this video goes out. I think it might be the second video in February. It's the 9th today anyway. And yeah, since it's February and we made it through January, I thought we'll do a new format of video which hopefully we'll be able to do every month if it works out well. And we'll take a look back at the last month as a bit of a review and as kind of a diary for us. To look at what worked, what didn't work, the ups and downs of the previous month, and have a look at what we got done. So yeah, in January, what happened? So I'll start with the indoor growing setup that we've got, which we've done a video on, which was released on a Tuesday a week or two ago. If you are interested in having a look at our indoor growing setup, I'd recommend having a look at that video. I'll try and remember to link it in the description box below. It's quite interesting and I like it a lot, so feel free to check that out. But because of that growing setup, it means that we've been able to start some of our seeds a little bit earlier, well, very early in fact, because we sowed some. I think the first that we sowed was on the 6th of January, where we sowed some chilies and some aubergines as well. The aubergines came up really quickly actually. And we also sowed some leeks and a few herbs as well. We did rosemary, oregano and thyme, and we also sowed some onions in January. This wasn't all at the same time, this was spread out through the month. And we also sowed some microgreens as well. The microgreens are doing fantastically. So yeah, the onions and the microgreens, they're doing really well actually. They are ready to come out of the indoor growing setup now. They're just going down into the greenhouse. The onions are already down there actually. The microgreens can go down there whenever we need the room. So they're doing fantastically. The onions are almost at the point where they can be pricked out now as well, which is really good because we haven't really had great success with onions in the past. The leeks, however, have not done so well. I thought the seeds were completely dead. They were planted for well over 20 days and just nothing came up. I think maybe one came up towards the end of that, but nothing else came up. So I kind of gave up with them and did another sowing. And then I just kind of put them on the bottom shelf out of the way, not under a light, and lo and behold, a few of them have started to germinate now. So either I'm being very, very impatient, or they just don't like bright lights on them when they're trying to germinate. Probably a mixture of the two. So I've done a second lot anyway, but the first lot have now started to come up, which is good. In terms of the chilies and the aubergines, mixed success, I would say. Partly my own fault for over and underwatering, which has stunted a few of them, and partly the issue with the seeds that we've got. So the ones from Sutton's have just done really badly from the start. Only about half of them, maybe not even half, have germinated, and the ones that have just look really weedy and really terrible compared to some of the ones that have germinated from Thompson and Morgan. And also you can probably hear the cat shouting in the background. He's moaning because the door is shut and I won't let him come in while I'm doing the video. So if you can hear him yowling, don't worry about him, he's completely fine. He just likes to try and get attention. Anyway, so yeah, the seeds from Thompson Morgan, they were doing pretty well. Again, not all of them doing fantastically, but that I think is my own fault because we had a bit of a fungus gnat problem and I tried to nip it in the bud this time. So I got some the nematodes and I completely soaked them, and then once I soaked them I kind of got into a bad habit of watering them as soon as they started to dry out on top, forgetting that I'd completely soaked them recently, so the bottom of them stayed pretty waterlogged even though there wasn't much in the tray, and I think it had a little bit of root damage as a result. So a few of them, including the aubergines started to go a little bit yellow actually, and a few of the chilies dropped some of their seed leaves. So I just potted them on in whatever state they currently were, and 50% of them are doing really well. They're really beefy and they're looking really good, and the other 50% are catching up. They are starting to do a bit better, but yeah, they had a bit of a rough start. And I ended up sowing some more aubergine and some more chili. He's now scratching on the door to try and get in the room. I sowed some more chili and some more aubergine, and they have started to germinate now as well, which is kind of unnecessary. And we were planning to do it a little bit later in the winter, towards the start of spring sort of time, to do a second sowing as backups, but because I had a bit of an issue, sorry, it's very distracting when you have a cat yowling on the other side of the door. I promise you, if you can hear that, I promise you, he's not in pain. He's just upset because the door is shut. It's just a classic cat. So that is the aubergines and the chilies. The herbs, again, bit of a mixed success. The thyme is doing fantastically. It might be a little bit leggy, but I think that's just how it grows. Smells like thyme, doing really well. The oregano germinated at roughly the same time as the thyme, but it's still extremely tiny and doesn't smell like oregano yet and isn't doing very much. And again, I've been trying to make sure I don't over or underwater those, but the thyme seems much happier than the oregano. A few of the rosemary seeds have germinated and they're doing okay, but I kind of expect those to take a long time, and I know that they are very slow growing, so I'm not so concerned about those. Plus we have a really big one of our own in the garden that we're considering taking down to the plot to put in the ground once the shed area is a bit better, and we can obviously take many kinds from that as we need to as well, which Sergio has done some of already. So not so concerned about that. Mostly concerned about 50% of the aubergines and chilies not doing particularly well, but you know, I've started to pot them on. The Fresno chilies as well, I forgot I also sowed some Fresno chilies, so I did aubergine, Black Beauty, I did a few different Cayenne varieties, and I also did some Fresnos as well. And then that means that I haven't then got much space for doing much else at the moment because we're starting to pot them on. The Fresno chilies, they're doing pretty well. They need potting on as well. They've kind of slowed down recently. So I need to sort those out as well. But overall, doing pretty well. One of the really good things obviously about starting this early means that it's okay if some stuff doesn't work because we get an opportunity to try again before it gets too late in the season. So that is the indoor growing setup state of things at the moment. Pretty happy with it. I think it could be a little bit better, but I'm learning from it, and I'm just trying to find a decent peat-free compost that is available near us that doesn't have a massive fungus gnat infestation issue, which the silver grove stuff that we use seems to. We've got some Wicks peat-free compost, but it's kind of like the New Horizon stuff, which we didn't get on with very well at all when we tried to use that, and it seems to have some added gravel to it, I guess, to bulk it out a little bit. It's not very good, but it's fine if we kind of mix it in with some of the others. So I've been microwaving the silver grow stuff to try and get out the fungus gnat eggs, mix it with the Wicks not so good stuff, and now I've also got some Koya compost from Wilco, and I'm hoping to mix all three of those things together to make it so that I can kind of control the fungus gnats, but also have a decent structure to the compost a little bit better, because you can't put that much compost in the microwave at once, and it's also very weird to microwave compost, and I hopefully don't have to keep doing that forever. Anyway, enough about the indoor growing setup. Shush Kane. Let's talk a bit about what we have got done on plot 12 this month. So the main things that we've kind of got done on plot 12 is a lot of the same really that we've been doing recently. It all focused around the shed or around tidying and getting the plot ready for the upcoming season, which it pretty much is now. It's pretty much ready to use. We haven't been able to do as much no dig as we want so far, but we do now have the beds kind of marked out. We can pretty much start to use them without worrying that we are planting stuff into the wrong place. We have got those little fences that we had on plot 79. I don't know if you've seen that in a previous plot tour. We have moved those completely away from plot 79. In fact, we've moved a lot of stuff from plot 79, and we're going to move more as well because there's no point in having it there while it's flooded. One of the things that we've taken is the little fences that we had like around the big greenhouse, which we really liked and really helped kind of guide Poppy. They don't fit quite as well on plot 12, but we do have them in the ground now. There's gaps between them, and because plot 12 is a kind of funnel slash cone shape, it makes it quite difficult to get them square all the way along. But we used a drone, and we have now got them kind of parallel with the front of the plot, and they're kind of marking out quite well where the beds are going to be, and they're kind of hammered in and they're level. They're not level with each other very well because the plot is on a hill, a slight hill, but they are in and they look okay. I think they kind of set the plot off quite nicely, and it means that we can then kind of continue that feel that we had on plot 79 now on plot 12, where we have fences kind of around the greenhouse, which is in the middle of the plot, which we still haven't got any glass in because we're going to be swapping it hopefully with the one on plot 79. And then we have some paths defined down the middle, which do have some edging in as well, which is all looking pretty good actually. And now it just really feels like we have a usable plot for the upcoming season, even if it's not exactly how we want it yet. It's usable for this year. So that's cool. And then we've also had a lot of focus on the shed, of course, because we still haven't got the windows in, but we have started now making the window frames. So when you receive the shed, it's just a pre-made shed with the sides and stuff that you just kind of screw together. And it was one with windows, but you just get this really flimsy, like perspex stuff, which is not very good. And you're meant to just kind of attach it to the frame with sealant, and it's just not very good. So we wanted to be able to improve that a little bit, and we want to have opening windows. There's 2 windows. We want to add hinges to the top, and we want to be able to make it so you can open them up and keep them open when it gets really hot in summer, and obviously close them when it's windy or when it's raining or when it's cold. So we're creating those from scratch. We're using some of the wood that we've kind of reclaimed from that weird extra side panel that we were given for the shed when it was delivered, because the battens that make that are obviously exactly the same as the windows, the battens around the windows as they are currently. We can reclaim it and reuse it so that it should match up quite nicely. It does mean we have a limited amount, and if we make any mistakes, there's not much room for error, and we might end up then having to buy extra wood which doesn't match. But for now it's going okay. We've cut up the actual pieces. So we need 8 pieces with a 45-degree angle cut, and they will make the actual window frame, which the perspex, we're going to buy new perspex, which the perspex will fit in, and then that will be what gets then screwed to the top of the window with a hinge to open it. We've got as far as cutting the wood. We haven't done any routing to make a channel in it for the perspex to fit into. We haven't joined them together yet. We haven't painted them or anything like that, but we have made a start, which is quite nice. We have all the other bits that we need for it. We just need to actually get going with it. And the other thing that we've been focusing on in the shed is buying the paint that we're going to use. We did a test. It's the same paint that they use in Scandinavia, which is a byproduct of copper mining. It's that red stuff. You can also get it in black, but they use it on a lot of their buildings. It's a very Scandi colour, and we really like it, and we're looking forward to painting the whole shed. So we did a tester pot. We thought it looked good. We bought a much bigger tub of it, and we're going to paint that whenever the temperature is above 5 degrees for a consistent amount of time with no rain, because it needs to apparently be above 5 degrees. Yes, so after we bought the paint, we also have been looking at how to build workbenches in there, because at the moment there's just a lot of stuff piled up. Our little kitchen in there is just on an old potting bench, and we knew that it could be done better. So we went for a little peruse, a little browse around the local recycling shop, the wood recycling shop. They're a non-profit, they're quite close by to us, and they mainly stock old reclaimed scaffolding boards, which is perfect for us. The cat is yowling again. So we went and had a little browse. The good thing is that they also cut it for you to length. So as long as we were really well planned in what we wanted, we could just go there, pay for the actual boards themselves, which are cheaper than buying scaffolding boards new, and then you can get them cut to the size that you want. So we did that, and then you can get them delivered. The delivery fee was quite expensive, which is quite frustrating, but there's no alternative because we don't have a van, we don't have a very big car, we don't have a roof rack, so we had to pay to get them delivered. But then we ended up getting a few extra pieces delivered as well, just to make it worthwhile doing, and then we can use those extra pieces for shelving or something like that. So we got the actual wood board, we got it delivered, that was really good, and we did start building the actual workbenches. We started with the really long one down the side underneath the window side, and we got most of that done, and we have done the back as well, but that was mostly in February, I think, the back one, but in January we got the longer one done down the side. They're not complete. They need more varnish. Well, they need some varnish. They haven't had any varnish yet, but that's the sort of job that we'll do in summer. For now, it just gives us much more workspace in there. It's so good, and that's where our kitchen's going to be. It's going to be where we do potting up until we can get some sort of potting station inside one of the greenhouses. It means we can put stuff under it, which means stuff feels a bit more tidy. There's so much more to do in the shed, and there's a long way to go, but it feels so much better just having those workbenches even in there, even though they're not completely finished. Very, very much recommend making that one of your priorities if you get a new shed. And that's kind of it on plot 12. So there's some other stuff. So we did sow some broad beans. They are starting to come up in the modules, but they haven't come up in the ground yet. Did some radish. They didn't really come up yet. I think they might have just started to poke their head through. But that's fine. I mean, it's still January. I was hoping to get like an early crop or a very quick crop of radishes. That would be really nice. And the bulbs at the front of the plot are coming up as well. So the daffodils are definitely poking their head up. In the past few weeks, they have absolutely shot up. It's crazy how big they are, and they've started to get their little flower spikes on them now, which is exciting, but also a bit weird because it's the start of February and it feels a little bit too early, but it has been very mild. A little bit too mild, in fact. Some of our bees in the bee hotel have already gone. Their bee hotel is now empty, which is a bit sad and a bit worrying, and it does give me a bit of a concern for the upcoming season, that we may have a bit of a lack of pollinators if they get killed off by coming out of their hibernation too early when there's nothing for them to feed on. Hopefully not, but yeah, it is a bit of a worry for me. Anyway, that is plot 12. Let's have a look at what has changed on plot 79. So over on plot 79, not such a happy tale, but let me start with the good stuff. The sweet peas that we sowed at the end of last year, that we rescued from the flooded greenhouse, they were looking really tatty, but they look much healthier now. They look much, much happier. And the sweet peas that we sowed at the start of the year as well, they are starting to show now, as well as some of the peas which I thought had completely rotten away in the modules. They have showed as well now. Some of the cauliflower that I sowed in modules in that greenhouse, half of them have been eaten. I'm not sure whether it's by slugs or by mice. We have a bit of a mice problem in that greenhouse at the moment, a mouse problem in that greenhouse at the moment. But some of them have survived, and I can do a few more. So that's all doing really well. The strawberries are very happy. The runners that we took are super happy, and the ones that we've covered with straw in the container that we moved out of the flooding, which is where the raised kind of container thing, they're all really happy as well. And the dahlias were at risk of rotting away, and I packed them incorrectly at the end of last year. I put them in straw, which I do not recommend. We ended up changing that and putting them in sawdust, and they are much, much happier. They're much drier. Still concerned that we may have lost a few of them, and because a few of them were rotted even when I took them out of the ground when it flooded, I just basically went for it and split them all into 2 or 3. They were quite big tubers. And I know that some of them definitely have little buds forming on them, so I think we'll definitely have a few. I'm really hoping we can have all of them, because then we will have tripled our dahlia collection for free, which is quite nice, but I'm not sure exactly yet what's going to happen. But they look a lot happier, and they're definitely a lot drier than they were when they were in straw. So yeah, lesson learned, don't use straw for storing dahlias. Definitely use sawdust. It is so much better. And that's not all the good news. And the wildflower patch as well. We've done a bit of a job of clearing that out, and that was very overgrown, but we kind of left that on purpose to let everything self-seed, and obviously let things hibernate in there that need to. I know there was a frog in there at some point, but now we're starting to get halfway through winter. We thought it was a good time for us to start clearing it back, and boy am I excited, because we have tried to get this wildflower patch self-sustaining for a long time. Well, I say a long time, since we've had the plot and since we first cleared that area. It was one of the first things that we cleared. It was just full of brambles, dead brambles, and full of rubbish and stuff. And finally, this time, when we cleared it all back, we've got foxgloves growing in there that have self-seeded. I think there's calendula in there. There's daffodils coming up that we thought had rotted from the flooding a couple of years ago. They are fine. Hopefully there should be some poppies coming up. There's thistles in there, which I'm leaving for the pollinators, especially if they're going to have a bit of a trickier year this year. And although there's loads of grass, generally it's looking pretty good. I'm really hoping that a few more things pop up, like poppies and stuff. They should do. And also we have bought an absolute ton of yellow rattle as well to try and deal with the grass problem, because it's not going to be a very easy job to weed it all out. And just ideally we just use yellow rattle, which is apparently parasitic to grass and feeds off of either the grass roots or the grass itself. Not sure. The only problem with the yellow rattle is that it needs to go through a period of cold, and it's not very cold out at the moment. I think this week it's been like 12 degrees, which is crazy for smack bang in the middle of February or of winter. So I'm leaving most of them in the fridge, the seeds for the yellow rattle, leaving them in the fridge. And every couple of weeks, I'm just going to sprinkle a few more. They need to be to go through a period of cold to be able to germinate properly. and if we don't do it by March time, then it's a little bit too late for this season. They should still germinate the next year, but obviously we want to try and keep on top of it and try and make that little wildflower patch look as good as it possibly can. There is obviously a risk that it's going to flood out, but so far this year the water hasn't got up that high, and it should never really get that high unless it's completely crazy circumstances where either the riverbank has burst or we had the water like we did, the rain like we did at the end of 2020. We'll see though, obviously there's always a risk, especially with climate change, but at the moment it's looking pretty good and the daffodils are popping up and they're looking really nice, and I'm really excited to see what that does this year. So talking about the flooding, that is kind of where the good stuff ends. Unfortunately, we have been flooded since about November time. So if you've watched some of the other videos, you'll know that the reason this time isn't because of high rainfall, even though the water company will tell you that's what it is. It's because the water company have taken off a nearby pumping station where they abstract water from the groundwater from the area to be able to provide drinking water to the local area. They've taken one of their pumps offline to do some essential maintenance, which is what they've called it multiple times. And when they turn that off, obviously they're reducing the amount that they're abstracting from the ground. So when it does rain, or even in this case, when it doesn't rain, the water just comes up and comes up quite rapidly and causes pretty bad devastation. So they let us know, to their credit, they did let us know that it was going to happen. They took it offline towards the end of, I can't remember the exact dates, but towards the end of last year. They took it offline for a week without telling us, and then it came up and then it went down. They were like, yeah, we had to take it off for essential maintenance. And then when they were doing that maintenance, apparently they found more stuff that needed maintaining. So they sent us another letter to say that it's going to be taken offline from around November time until the end of January, and that we'll be at risk of flooding. And we did flood pretty quickly, and it just hasn't really gone down. That said, there was a week where it did start to go down quite quickly. There was about a few centimetres a day that the water level was dropping, and we had the pleasure of having our pump pumped by a petrol pump, which just pumps from our plot and just goes elsewhere. It looked really good, and it for the first time in weeks we could see most of our plot, and our beetroot weirdly looks like it survived. Our plot neighbours all had a lot clearer plots than we did because they're slightly higher, and we were like, okay, well, it looks really good, but we're expecting the nearby area to drain back into our plot, which is the lowest plot and lowest part of the site. And we kind of, lo and behold, the next day we were like, okay, the water's come back up, that's what we expected. But then it went back up again, even further following that. Turns out, this was at the end of January, and it turns out that after they completed their essential maintenance, which apparently they did on time, they did find another issue and they turned their pumps back on and it broke a valve or something, and so they had to take it back offline again, which caused the water to come back up again. They didn't tell us that they were turning it back off again, so we didn't have any forewarning of that. They told us after it happened, and that's kind of where we're at currently. The water's back up again and it has just started to go back down again, but it's still very high and it makes the plot completely unusable. We still can't get to the greenhouse. We can't move anything. We want to move the greenhouse itself onto plot 12 because it doesn't make sense to have it there anymore, and we want to move the water butts and some of the good wood that we were using for edging. There's no point just having it underwater. We may as well move it around onto plot 12 where it's got a bit of a better fighting chance. So that's where we are. We're currently at the mercy of the water company once again, but they have told us today or this week that they're expecting to have that part fixed soon, or they have fixed it and they're expecting to return to normal by next week. At this point, considering this is at least the fourth time in the space of 12 months that they have caused a flood by turning off that pump for essential maintenance, that one pumping station gets taken offline 4 times in 1 year. I'm not holding out hope that they have actually fixed everything and that they're not going to cause this problem to us again this year or very soon. But we'll have to see what happens, and obviously we'll keep you updated. But fingers crossed we actually get plot 79 back soon. It is going to look very different though when it does come back, because we've taken up all the fences, and obviously it's going to be muddy, it's going to be disgusting, but we've taken up all the fences. We're going to be moving the compost bins, we're going to be moving the greenhouse and swapping it with a smaller greenhouse that we have on plot 12 at the moment. It's all going to look very sad and very different, but I think for our own mental health and our own benefit, we need to focus more on plot 12 and less on plot 79. We will still use plot 79, and I'll probably talk a bit more about this stuff in a future video. But it's kind of the roles of them have reversed a little bit. Plot 79 was going to be our main plot and plot 12 was going to be our backup. But since we've got the shed on plot 12 now and it's not flooded, we're getting a bit more attached to plot 12, of course. And plot 79 is then going to be the one that we use when it's free. We'll use it as like a summer plot, and hopefully we'll get to grow all our pumpkins and everything there this year. And not worry about it too much. And then maybe in a couple of years when we're confident that it's not just going to flood every time it rains, or that the water company have actually got on top of their maintenance, then maybe we'll focus a bit more on it. It's still got the really good seating area there, which we can use. It will still have the smaller greenhouse that we originally bought, and it will still have a small shed, and it will still be an awful lot of land that we'll have to try and keep on top of the weeding. So we'll still use it, and we still love it, but at the moment plot 12 is quickly turning into our baby and it's starting to look pretty good. But yeah, that is kind of a review of January. There's a little bit of February stuff in there as well. But yeah, I'm hoping that I can get one of these out every month. I hope you find it interesting as well. It's really good for me to be able to look back and see the achievements of what we've done, because we can be quite hard on ourselves and not realise exactly what we've got done. And that's one of the reasons that we have this channel, is for us to have some sort of a documentation for it and to keep us motivated to keep working on it in the future. So being able to look back and see what has worked and also try and learn from what hasn't worked as well, is quite good for us to document it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, please let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll try and find a different way to present it. I appreciate this is just a lot of me waffling on into a camera, and maybe it will get slightly shorter as well in the future as well. I don't know, it's probably going to get a bit busier as we get through the year, isn't it? But eventually we'll have less to do on the plots, especially on plot 12. So you know, it might change the format anyway. But if you enjoyed it, please do let me know, and I'll try to continue with it. And if you didn't enjoy it, also let me know, and I will try to improve it a bit, because I want you to enjoy this as much as I want to enjoy making them. So I hope that you do. But that is it from today's video. I have definitely waffled on enough. So hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But from me, Sergio and Poppy, and the very annoying shouty cat that really wants to come into this room, take the very best of care, and we will see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye.